Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Well, we had last episode, we talked about the Enneagram, and I got Kelly to stay. I was super intrigued, and thank you. Thanks for staying.
Thanks for having me.
You mentioned something a few minutes ago when we were sitting here talking about our childhood wounds. And I think as parents, could we just take a little bit of time and talk about that?
Yeah.
And because that's a third, right? If you didn't get the last episode, go back and listen, because Kelly's an Enneagram coach, and she introduces us to the Enneagram in the last episode. So
as best as I could in a little bit of time.
Yes, in a little bit of time. It's a big, years and years and years of training and understanding for you. But we're going to dive in on this bonus episode to the Enneagram and some parenting and recognizing some childhood wounds, which we all have, all of us.
Yeah, because we all have a story, right?
That's right.
And that's what it comes down to, is when you start doing Enneagram work, you want to find yourself in it, you want to look at your story and see what shaped and formed you. Looking at it from a parenting tool, okay, I think the beauty of how the Enneagram, of course, again, it starts by doing the work on yourself, but it also is about acknowledging that we're all made different, right? Our story shaped us. And in that story, each of us has what they call a childhood wound and a basic fear and a basic need, okay? Mm-hmm. So the wounding does not necessarily mean it was intentional or bad parenting. So again, we go back to grace upon grace, right? Holding it loosely, looking at yourself and your parenting with curiosity instead of judgment, right? Mm-hmm. So, but we know if we can learn, that's what you and I picked up on, is if we could memorize, let's just say, all 9 spaces and what they need, the message they need, that because of the space they're in and their wounding, they have a hard time hearing, right?
Yeah.
So if we could try to get these 9 messages, like, just listen, doesn't every kid need to know? You are good. Yeah. You are loved and wanted. You are loved for yourself. I know you and I love you exactly who you are and how you were made. Your needs are not a problem. You are safe in my care. You will be taken care of. I will not betray you, and your presence matters. Like every human needs all of those,
everyone.
right?
Yeah.
And as you study the Enneagram, maybe learn what your kids are, maybe you could, especially if you can tell, like, I know that my daughter Bryn is a 1, and now in that space, just knowing that, it means I want authentically let her know that she is good.
Yeah.
Right? She doesn't have to be perfect. She can be imperfectly perfect in God's eyes. And she can make mistakes, but at her core, she is good. Yeah. And she's loved. Yes. Right? And she didn't have to be perfect. So knowing that helped me start speaking the language that she needs to hear. Right?
Yeah. My son's a 1 too. So that's what he needs to hear, is that he is good. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's
and that you love him beyond his mistakes.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to be perfect. He doesn't have to earn your love.
Yeah.
So that's your 1 space.
That he can make a mistake, because ones don't like to make a mistake.
No.
Yeah.
Listen, we know there's only one that walked this earth that didn't make mistakes, and that's Jesus. That's it. So they got to stop shoulding themselves, but you can help them as a parent by letting them know that you love them for who they are. You love them for their good, but they don't have to be perfect. Yeah. That's the message they needed to hear, because they're worried that they were bad or evil. And that usually comes from a childhood that was based on a critical parent. Yep. That's the childhood theme usually.
Unfortunately, that would have been me.
Right. And so we tend, as parents, to pass on. We mirror. The brain does. We always tell people, we tell ourselves, I'm not going to do what my parent does, right? Sure. But we watched it our whole life. That's all we learned. Right. So we have to learn something new, and that's what I love about what you're doing here, is you're helping parents that are intentionally taking on children that were not theirs biologically, that just in that itself is a wound. Yeah. Right? And the more you can learn about that and attachment and how to love well, because that's what you want. You're a mama that wants to love well, and you want to help other mamas love well. So I just thought we could look at what the childhood theme is, which leads to the fear and what they need to know.
Yeah, let's do it.
So we just went through the 1. Like, it's usually a critical environment, often a parent that maybe not, I raised a 1. Like, I just wanted her to know that she was doing well and told her she was perfect all the time. Therefore, the message was, I need to be perfect, even when I was loving her regardless. Yeah. So they need to hear that they're good. and that you love them even when they make mistakes, right?
Okay.
So our 2s are our loving person that doing somewhere in the 2, they felt like it almost is like a role reversal, their childhood theme, that they end up taking care of a parent or doing things for a parent to earn love in their mind, okay? And so what that means to them is that they lost the message that they are just loved for who they are, not for what they do for you, right?
Okay.
So they need to hear, I love you for you, Tara, not for what you do, not when you clean the carpet or take out the trash. I just love you and your character and who you are. That's what they needed to hear, or they need to hear. Our 3s, usually in their childhood, the wounding had something to do with only feeling special or known or loved when they were on a stage, getting applause, becoming the best at something.
Yes.
So they felt that they're loved for what they accomplish versus who they are.
That's my middle child.
Yeah. So what 3s need to hear is you are loved for who you are, how God made you, not on how much you win and how you're the best at things or how you perform.
Yeah.
Fine.
Because we always encourage, like, we always learned you encourage. But what he heard is, because probably he was feeding something in us when he would perform well.
Yeah.
And then we were just like, woohoo, you're the best at this, you're the best at that.
Do
and
it
then he's
again,
like,
do it again. Yeah. And that
Yeah.
feels good to anyone. But
Sure.
for the people that find themselves in the 3 space, what happened, it wasn't your intention.
Yeah,
It wasn't
no,
my parents'
sure.
intention to only make me feel loved when I was doing something.
Yeah.
But somehow, and that's why when you hear childhood wound, you have to come back to, it's not that the parents meant that. Like no parent will ever be
Yeah.
able to meet of their children's all their needs. But if we could learn to get these critical messages through, it
Yeah.
might help, right? So
Yeah.
in the 4 space, usually the 4 felt lost or rejected, somehow didn't feel a part of their own family for whatever reason. It could have been they were the firstborn and then another one came up behind them. Could have been that they're just makeup. They have a parent, like they really are a sensitive and nurturing type person, and their parents couldn't deal with that. They needed them to be strong or whatever, and so they felt different or wrong or flawed, like something's missing in them. And so they're longing to be seen and known. Their fear is they won't be significant. They won't be seen as special. So they need to hear, you are known. I see you,
Yeah.
I get you, and I love you for you.
Yeah.
Right? That's what they need to hear. So our 5s, their childhood usually had something to do with their needs not being met. That a parent kind of just kept in their mind, could be true, could not be true, wasn't, and usually 5s are raised by parents that have not been in touch with their own emotions, and so they don't know how to meet emotionally the needs of that person. But it also could have been maybe they were raised in an environment they didn't have enough money, and they didn't have enough clothes. So there's a scarcity mentality, and so what they need to hear is that they are safe, right? But it's not going to be knowledge or boundaries, or they don't have to push people away to be safe. They can be loved, but they were built for relationship. Knowledge is not going to make them safe. It's a good tool, right? But people, and so they are going to have to learn that they are just loved. They don't have to be scared, that their needs are going to be, it's okay to have needs and to give somebody a chance to meet them.
I think she's talking to me.
Yeah. And the 6, the childhood of the 6 is where they didn't feel safe from their parents or their caretakers. And sometimes this is big safe, but I was telling you a story about my sister who is a 6, and she did have some major things in her childhood. But the memories that God took her when we did this work, when she was on the journey that I lead, God showed her these memories of things like learning to swim and her parents stepping back, right? Walking in the beach and there's being jellyfish and she wanted to be held and her dad wanted to teach her, if you walk fast, you won't get stung. And so those were memories of a parent doing what they should be doing. But to her, it felt like, I'm not safe. And so 6s struggle with fear more than anything.
And maybe she had some implicit memories of that actually caused that to be opened, an open wound that those actually were just feeding.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be that they made a bad decision that caused them harm.
Yeah.
And so they don't trust themselves because it's
Yeah.
about self-doubt.
Yeah.
So what they need to hear is that they can make good decisions. And when they make a mistake, they'll learn from that and make a different one next
Yeah.
time that will be better, that they'll survive that,
That's
that they're
good.
safe, not because they're underneath it, but they can learn to stop saying what if and say even if.
Even if.
Right?
Well,
Because that's what the
good.
6, you are safe. They need to hear that. And we can never, all of these things that we need, and I'll list them for you so you have them
Yeah.
for the podcast. You can't tell these kids this enough because this is what they're having. It's like they have a block to hearing it. Even if you're saying it. So you've got to say it more than once. So the 7, usually in their childhood, they felt limited. They felt like they couldn't be free to do what they wanted to do. They felt boxed in, and they were fearful of getting hurt, of personal pain, right?
Oh, really?
And so they run from that. And what they need to know is that they will be taken care of, right? And they can rest, not have to be going from one thing to another and to be scared of what they feel. They can get, most of these
so
kids.
they were scared of personal pain, like physical pain or
emotional pain.
Okay.
Yeah. Many of them, and I think both of us might know someone in the room, have a hard time dealing with, right, what they're really feeling. And so they kind of just shove it down because they don't trust themselves to be able to deal with that pain. They just want to move away from it.
Yeah.
Right? And so then they live life in unicorns and rainbows. So they need to know that they will be taken care of and that they can have joy.
Yeah.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
What's wrong with unicorns and rainbows?
When you live a life, Kyle, of unicorns and rainbows, you miss half of life. Life's done in the valley. You live in the valley, and you can't appreciate the valley unless you know the tips. So the unicorns and rainbows are equally important, right? But if that's all you want to see, then you're going to miss. And you're actually, in parenting where that can be a problem, Kyle, I'll just talk to you, is you can miss going deep with your kids.
Yeah.
Because it actually hurts you to see them hurting.
Yeah.
And so it'd be easier just to shove that off and let's go pick up the guitar and play a song, you know, whereas if he's in his real true space, he could pick up a song and write deep about the pain he's feeling and help your child deal with that.
Yeah.
Right?
I like this episode.
This is my sweet husband behind the camera over here.
He was amazing.
He is a 7. Yeah, Kelly, that is really profound. So we can post these things?
Yes, I'm going to give you all of them. So let's wrap up the last 2.
Okay.
So the 8 usually feels like their control was taken away. Somebody could have bullied them or hurt them, actually hurt a parent. Often they have a parent that is like very boisterous and scares the other parent, so they felt the need to kind of get in there and protect, right? And because they felt like they were going to be betrayed. They felt betrayed by somebody in their life. It might be a false betrayal, like they might have just think they were and they weren't. But so they need to know that it takes more strength, right? More strength to be vulnerable. It's going to be okay. They're safe. You know, they're going to be okay. They're going to be safe.
Yeah.
No one's going to betray you. I'm here. I'm not going to abandon you.
Yeah.
That's what they need to know.
That's an 8. That kind of reminds me of some of maybe one of my daughters.
And so what they do, there's really a sweet teddy bear inside that
But they
big
come
mountain
out-
of an energetic person with
Yeah.
a lot of will, strong plans to move forward. But inside, and so they just need to know that he's going to be okay. I'm not going to betray you. Every child needs to hear that from their parent, right? I'm for you. I'm not going to betray you.
It's okay to be vulnerable.
Yeah. And then the last space of the 9. So our 9s, so hard. When I teach the full thing, I almost always see my eye will catch at least one of the 9s in the room. And I will say they felt like somewhere along the way their voice didn't matter, that they couldn't speak up. You had it on one particular issue, but this is almost everywhere. Sometimes it's about the theme of their life could be is that mom might be mentally ill or have too much going on and you can't rock the boat. Dad might be an alcoholic. We're walking around on eggshells. So I'm just going to keep fake peace and try to make it all look like it's okay, and I should just not voice when something's wrong. Should just keep it to myself. And then they lose. I mean, the 9s are the best on the planet of seeing both sides. They bring tons of wisdom when they're stepping in their peace gift. So they need to know that their presence matters. Their voice matters. I want to hear what you have to say, even if I don't like it. A parent needs to be able to say that. I remember when Bryn was in her junior high years and she was having a hard time finding her voice and saying it out loud for fear of hurting me, right? That it wasn't good to say it. We created a journal that we just shared back and forth, and she could write what she felt, what she needed from me, what was hurting her, and then give it to me when she was ready, and then I would respond when I was ready, and we would go back and forth.
That's great.
And it was just a tool because at that age, it's hard to communicate. You know, moms and daughters start getting, and I didn't ever want to say things I didn't mean, and so it gave me a way to think about what she was saying, hear it, process it.
That is really good.
Yeah, and then
I'm
be able to,
jotting that down.
and as a 1, she leans that 9. She needs to know that her presence and her voice matters, and that she can speak. I think that's a huge thing with parents. One of the things with Rick, we've been married 25 years. Again, 23-year-old and a 20-year-old. We gave our kids permission to come to us when they thought we did something wrong. And I think you might know this little trick. It's called, may I make an appeal, right? So they're feeling something. Rick and I are both aggressives, in-your-face type people. Both our kids
Yeah.
are pulled back. And we gave them permission that when it was something they felt strongly about, if they felt hurt by us or we weren't giving them permission to do something, make an appeal
Yeah.
where we would listen to them without judgment and promise to
Yeah.
weigh what they were saying carefully.
Yeah.
And then we would come back, you have to kind of get to neutral in parenting.
Yeah.
That's a big part of parenting.
Yeah.
If we parent from our reactive place all the time, we will push our kids into
Yeah.
places we don't want them to go.
Right.
We can learn to love them and recognize that our kids are going to trigger us.
Yeah.
They are going to
That
meet.
is such a great, the journal thing is great because it gives you a moment to breathe and to react and to think, and my daughter does that. Sometimes she writes me notes. She did last Friday, and she'll sometimes not want to share them with me because they're usually not very nice. But when I can get the hold of them, or when she does give them to me, I always tell her, even though I'm like, oh, what she said wasn't so nice, I'm like, I just automatically say, thank you for sharing it.
Yeah, because if I don't know if you've ever read the book called Fierce Conversations by
No.
Dr. Susan Scott. I think is her last name. One of the best books out there. And
Really?
knowing
Fierce
you and your work
Conversa-
you do, you need to
Put
read
that
it.
in the show notes too.
Yeah, and
Fair
she
enough.
basically, the premise of her book is the conversation is the relationship.
Yeah.
So if we avoid conversations, we're damaging the relationship.
Yeah.
Right? It goes both ways. So 9s need to know, if you have a child that's a 9, that you want to hear from them.
Yeah.
Their voice matters.
Yeah.
And they can make it safe. And so, whatever tools you can come up with to get there, that they
Yeah.
can start saying it. And then you want, especially with the 9, like if they have a hard time saying what they want or need and they finally say it, honor it.
Yeah.
You know?
Even if it was ugly, that's right. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. We all feel ugly things.
Yeah, and a lot of times, 9 times out of 10, what parents do to hurt children is really perception, but it's still their reality.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And so if you want to create a home, especially for kids that are going to have some abandonment issues right from
Yeah.
the get-go, are going to have some, I don't know if I can trust you from
Yeah.
the get-go. I don't know if you're going to love me and not
Yeah.
leave.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
I would say
I was
almost
about to
all
say
of them.
all of them.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if you said this on the air or if it was before, but I think that like they probably have been wounded in all these ways, if not from their biological parents, from me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or a
I'm not
mentor
gonna-
or a coach or a teacher.
Yeah, raise my
You
hand
had a
and say,
memory from a teacher.
oh yeah. Well, I just have a memory. Anyway, let me say this and then I'll come
Okay.
back. But I think we have this, wounding that's maybe already primed for some of that. In
Yes.
other words, like, and it may have happened. It may have happened.
the way you were wired.
Pre-language.
Yeah, it's the way you were wired.
Yeah,
It
and
has-
and born.
Yeah.
And I mean, there is epigenetics. There's a whole thing about how our parents' woundings and traumas is passed down. I mean, there's
by legacy, yeah.
there's studies with Holocaust survivors, and I mean, there's
Yes.
a lot of stuff out there that
I mean,
says
God
that.
says that in Scripture, right? That
Yeah.
the sins of the generation
Will
will
pass
go
down.
legacy upon
Yeah.
legacy. And that's not because people wanted to, but again, that mirroring part of the brain. And
Yeah.
I do believe there's some just hereditary things and
Yeah.
cycles of families. But he also says it can change.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the good
More
news.
blessing
That's
upon
the good
blessing,
news.
And so, but that will only happen if
With
we're willing to do the
awareness.
work.
Yeah, awareness precedes change, and
Yes.
this is just an awareness tool.
Yeah,
That's
and
just an awareness
and for
tool.
children, I mean, life is cruel. The world is cold out
Yeah.
there. If we can be doing all of these affirming, you are loved. I see you. I see you, and I love you right the way you are, Tara. You don't have to
Thank you.
change for me. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
starts with us
and you're
doing our
safe.
work.
Yes.
Doing our work.
Yeah,
doing
we
our
do mirror work, that kind of like Saturday Night Live stuff and Soulwell, but
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
matters. You try to look in the mirror and tell yourself who you are. It's really hard to do,
Yeah.
but it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But all the time we'll hear the wounding messages and tell ourselves that's who we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is that? Why is that we so easily pick up those wounding messages and we won't pick up the truth?
Because we see ourselves in a negative light. The
Yeah.
human condition is a fallen world of fallen people and all those things. And I would say, too, the other thing I think as parents, it's so important for adoptive kids or all kids, anyone that's listening that's a parent, is they need to be affirmed for every negative they're hearing out in the world or already was spoken to them in the womb or after they were out. Those are what screams in their ear. And we've got
Yeah.
to make their value, how much we love them, that they're safe and
Right.
wanted, louder.
Right.
which doesn't necessarily mean screaming.
Right.
You know, I even remember there was a tool I read about, I can't remember which parenting program, I did them all
Yeah.
back in the day, but it was where you would, let's say and this would actually be a great tool to do with these.
Okay.
Okay, so I am good, let's just take that one, or I'm loved for who I am.
Okay.
So we would do this thing that I would call an intention with our kids, and they would say it out loud, like, I am loved for who I am, right? And you have them say it like 3 times. We used to do it at bedtime with both kids, and then they would say it silently to themselves, and we would look at each other while we were doing it. It seems so dorky, right? But what we're trying to do is create a file cabinet that on the bad days when the wounding comes in, they have a place to go that isn't straight to being triggered to what they are. And when you practice it in silence and in color, I would have them write it in color because you learn better in color, you know. But all these things, I mean, listen,
And if
I
you
did them
add
all,
breath
and my
to
kids
that,
are as flawed and think I
of
messed up
course.
as anybody. I mean,
Yeah.
so grace upon grace in
Yeah.
parenting,
Yeah.
but we can help. We can do better.
That's right. I was just thinking, I went to therapy yesterday, and one of the things we talked about, some fears that I was struggling with, and she asked me, what are you going to choose? What are you going to choose over the next 2 months when things get crazy and you know, the holidays are coming up and it's just a really chaotic time. And for parents, there's a lot of pressure on us that we have the right turkey and the dressing and the food and the presents, and, you know, that kids are out of school, which is a whole nother added, you know, stress.
Yeah.
And she said, what are you going to choose instead of it? And I said peace. And so we did an anchor, and let's just end with this because this is such a great thing. Because
deep breathing is one of the best things you could give.
deep breathing, and then the affirmations, and when you add the breath, you're basically telling your body to remember this.
Yes.
And through touch and through breath. And so I chose this, and I put my hand on my heart probably because I am a heart space.
Could be.
And
knows? Only
I
God
just
knows.
taken a deep breath, and I literally practiced this she told me I might have to practice it 1,000,000 times a day because I was feeling really defeated in her office yesterday. But I did. I ended up practicing, and it came super natural. As soon as I started to feel triggered in my body, I told myself, I want to choose peace.
Yeah.
And I just put my hand on my heart, and I took a deep breath. I choose peace.
It's an intention. You're making an intention.
I choose peace. I choose peace. And I can't choose perfect, and I can't choose fear because I'm choosing peace. So let's do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And for any of you that are Christians out there, I would also say you could just open your arms as well and receive it. Receive the peace you need. Receive what you need from God. Receive to know that you are loved,
Yeah.
that you are safe,
Yeah.
and that you are good,
We are
right? And that
good.
your presence and your voice matter. You know, all of these things. So yeah, I'll send them to you so you
Yeah,
can have
send
them
them to me.
when this ever rolls, if you
Yeah.
decide you're going to roll it.
Yeah.
But
We're
yeah.
rolling it.
Yeah.
We're rolling it.
So thanks so much for having
Thank
me.
you, Kelly.
What a-
Thank you. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm glad that, like I said, if you did not, this was a great little piece right here. But go back, and if you have no idea what we're talking about when we talk about Enneagram, the episode before this, Kelly's there talking about Enneagram. She's an Enneagram coach. She's been doing this for 10 or 15 years.
I'd love to invite you to the
Soulwell journey.
My website, I think, is going to be
It's gonna be
listed.
down there,
It's a journey. It's a series of 3 retreats. All these things and more, and practices like the breathing and
Yeah.
things that you can welcome and pass on to your children.
Yeah.
We've seen just marriages changes,
Yeah.
parenting and families
Yeah.
changes because
More
this
is
work-
caught than taught.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can know a whole lot of stuff, but what we do and who we are is what our children become.
Yeah. And we got to take this head knowledge that we have
Yeah.
and get it into it. And that's why experience-based work, which is what we do on the Soulwell journey,
Yeah.
Can be very helpful. So
Thank
I'd love
you.
you to
And
come.
I'm coming in the fall.
You're coming in the fall
Yeah,
this year.
2022.
Yes,
2022.
this coming
Yeah,
fall.
That's right.
Is 2022.
Join me.
Yes, come do it with Taylor
anyway.
Hedden. Wouldn't that be cool?
So thanks, guys, again for joining us. Don't forget, subscribe, share with a friend, talk about this at coffee. Get real with your buddies, and you're not alone. So we'll see you next week.
Mama's way.